Welcome to Tomorrow Unveiled, the show where we explore the stories that'll shape our world right now. Here's a sentence that's never been true before in human history. A child can now have access to a private tutor, patient, adaptive, available at any hour, calibrated to their exact level for $4 a month, or free. For most of civilization, that tutor was a luxury available only to wealthy families. The gap between a child with a tutor and a child without one has persisted for centuries. But something fundamental shifted in 2025 and 2026, and it's not just about technology getting cheaper. It's about inequality finally pointing in the opposite direction. Today, we're exploring the $4 tutor revolution and how AI is quietly closing one of education's oldest gaps. We're talking about personalized learning at scale, textbooks in African languages that didn't exist before, and a growing body of evidence that when AI tutoring is designed right, it actually works. Stay with us. For thousands of years, the quality of a child's education has been determined almost entirely by the wealth of their parents. That's not hyperbole. That's just how it worked. A child born into affluence got a private tutor, someone patient, someone who adapted to their pace, someone who identified gaps in understanding in real time and never lost patience. A tutor who asked questions instead of just giving answers, who met the child exactly where they were. A child born into poverty got a crowded classroom, an overworked teacher facing 30 students. Whatever textbooks existed in whatever language happened to dominate the curriculum. No one person paid attention to just them. And that gap, that fundamental inequality, shaped everything that came after. The affluent child didn't just learn more, they learned differently. They learned to think, to question, to believe that education was responsive to them. The other child learned to sit still, to memorize, to accept that education was something that happened to them, not for them. Public education, for all its achievements, has never been able to close that gap. A single teacher, no matter how skilled, cannot give each student in a classroom of 30 the individualized attention that changes outcomes. That's not a failure of teachers. It's a constraint of the system. But here's what's changed. Sal Khan has been saying for nearly 2 decades that AI could deliver the kind of personalized instruction that was once only available to the affluent. In 2026, that's not a vision anymore. It's a product, it has a price, and it has evidence. Let's be clear about something important. Not all AI is created equal when it comes to education. If you ask ChatGPT to solve a math problem, it'll solve it for you. You get an answer. You copy it down. You learn nothing. That's the risk with generic AI chatbots in education. They're answer machines, not teaching machines. Khanmigo was designed from the ground up with a completely different philosophy. It won't just give you the answer. It guides you there through questions, hints, and what's called the Socratic method. The same approach that makes a skilled human tutor valuable. You take a guess. It responds with another question, not the answer, but a hint that nudges you toward it. You work through the problem. You arrive at the answer yourself. That's not a small difference. That's the difference between learning and copying. Here's what happens when you design an AI tutor to actually teach. Instead of just answer, students don't just get the right answer. They develop the reasoning that leads to right answers. They build confidence. They start to believe that they can figure things out. The OECD Digital Education Outlook 2026 found something striking. When AI tools are designed with clear pedagogical principles, when they prioritize understanding over answers, they can support genuine learning, not just performance on tests. Actual learning. Robust research demonstrates that even inexperienced tutors can enhance their tutoring quality and improve student outcomes by using educational AI tools designed this way. The AI amplifies human capacity. It doesn't replace it. Now, I know what you're thinking. This sounds great in theory, but does it actually work? That's a fair question, and there's an answer, a rigorous, measured answer. In 2025, researchers published results from a randomized, controlled trial in Scientific Reports. This isn't a survey. It's not anecdotal. It's the same gold standard evidence used in medicine. Students who interacted with a well-designed AI tutor at home on their own learned significantly more than students who engaged with the same content during in-class active learning lessons. And they spent less time on task doing it. More learning, less time. That's efficiency. The numbers. Students in AI-powered learning environments achieve 54% higher test scores, 30% better learning outcomes overall. Let that sink in. 54% higher. That's not a marginal improvement. That's a transformation. But here's the crucial part. These results came from AI tutors designed with pedagogical intent. AI that asked instead of answered. AI that adapted to the learner's pace. AI that was built to teach, not to perform. That's the difference between AI that closes the achievement gap and AI that widens it. And it all comes down to design. Do these results mean AI tutors are perfect? No, nothing's perfect. But they're evidence that something fundamental has shifted. For the first time, we have a learning intervention that outperforms traditional classroom instruction, and it's available at a price that approaches zero. A private human tutor in the United States costs between $40 and $100 per hour. Most families that hire a tutor commit to 2 hours per week. That's $4,000 to $10,000 per year. Khanmigo costs $4 per month, $48 per year, or free for teachers, free for students in eligible districts, and free in countries where philanthropic partnerships have been established. The price of the most powerful educational intervention ever studied has dropped by more than 99%. That's not hyperbole. That's not marketing. That's the math. What was once a luxury of the wealthy, a patient, adaptive, always available tutor, calibrated to your exact level, is now within reach of almost anyone with a smartphone. A child in rural Mali can access the same Socratic tutoring as a child in Manhattan. A student in Manila can get unlimited math help in English or Tagalog. A teacher in a low-resource school can give their entire classroom personalized instruction they could never afford to provide alone. This isn't theoretical equity. It's practical equity. It's a price point that actually changes who gets access. Hey, real quick, if you're finding this helpful, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next episode. We're covering some genuinely important stories, and I want to make sure you see them. Here's something that probably hasn't crossed your mind. In most of the world, the only available science textbooks are in English or French or another colonial language. A child in Mali who speaks Bambara at home encounters physics for the first time in French. A child in Senegal encounters chemistry in a language they don't dream in. The textbook exists. But it's not theirs. This creates two problems at once. First, it means fewer children actually learn science, because the language barrier is real and it's crushing. Second, it means smaller languages die. If school is only in French, then French becomes the language of knowledge, of opportunity, of the future. Bambara becomes the language of home. Over generations, home languages fade. A project called Robots Mali is using AI to solve this. They're using AI-assisted content generation, machine translation, and human editing to produce the first STEM textbooks some children have ever encountered in their mother tongue. AI drafts. Humans edit for cultural relevance and accuracy. The textbook that emerges is neither purely AI nor purely human. It's collaborative, and it didn't exist before. A child in Mali can now open a physics textbook in Bambara, not a translation of a French textbook. A textbook designed for them, in their language, with illustrations that reflect their world. That's not just educational access. That's cultural survival. That's the statement that your language is the language of knowledge too, and here's the part that matters. This only becomes possible when the cost of content creation drops low enough that it's economically feasible to produce materials for languages with smaller markets. AI made that economically viable. Khanmigo is now available in more than 180 countries. Teachers in 44 countries get free access thanks to partnerships with Microsoft and other organizations. Students in eligible districts get free access. The infrastructure is spreading. But here's the thing about personalized learning that doesn't get talked about enough. It doesn't mean the same thing for everyone. Research from the European Commission found something uncomfortable. Students in well-supported environments, students with stable internet, with parents who understand how to use these tools, with schools that provide guidance, use AI as a sophisticated tutor or coach. They ask deep questions. They engage with the hints. They learn. Meanwhile, disadvantaged students might use the same tool as a shortcut. They ask the AI to give them the answer. They copy it. They move on. The tool is the same. The outcome is completely different. That's the honest tension nobody likes to talk about. Access and good use are not the same thing. A child with a $4 tutor who uses it to get answers is not benefiting the same way as a child who uses it to think. The equity promise of AI in education depends on design, training, and intentional deployment, not just the existence of the tool. What does personalized learning actually mean? It means the system adapts to the learner. It means pacing adjusts based on understanding. It means a child can struggle with fractions for as long as it takes without falling behind in the sequence. It means a gifted student can accelerate without waiting for the rest of the class. But it also means something else. It means the responsibility for engagement falls partly on the learner. That's powerful. It's also risky, because a learner who doesn't know how to engage with a personalized system, who hasn't been taught to think critically about their own learning, might just use it to avoid learning. The equity engine, the idea that AI can be deliberately designed and deployed to reduce inequality rather than amplify it, is real, but it's not automatic. It requires choice. It requires intention. There's something psychologically powerful about having access to a tutor who can't judge you. Imagine that for a second. You're struggling with algebra. You've read the explanation 3 times, and you still don't get it. With a human tutor, there's a voice in your head. Am I stupid? Is the tutor losing patience? Am I wasting their time? Those anxieties are real, and they're learning blockers. With an AI tutor, there are none of those anxieties. It will explain the same concept 50 times without any change in tone or patience. It won't make assumptions about your ability based on your race, your gender, your accent, or your family background. It won't get tired at 5 p.m. and phone it in. That's not a replacement for human connection. But it's something that was never available before. Judgment-free, infinitely patient, always available tutoring. For students who've internalized the message that they're not good at math, that they're not a science person, that they're not smart enough. This matters. The AI doesn't care. It just keeps asking questions. It just keeps guiding. It doesn't know your history. It just knows where you are right now. Research on stereotype threat, the phenomenon where students underperform when they're aware of negative stereotypes about their group, shows that removing the human judge from the equation can actually improve outcomes. The student stops worrying about confirming a stereotype and starts focusing on the problem. An AI tutor is, in some ways, the ultimate removal of that social threat. There's no one watching. There's no one to disappoint. There's just the problem and the student and an infinitely patient guide. That's not a small thing. That's accessibility that has never existed before. Let's not pretend this is simple. It's not. The biggest risk isn't that AI will eliminate jobs. It's that AI's benefits will once again accrue unevenly. We could build a world where AI tutoring is available to every child on Earth. Or we could build a world where it's available to every child whose parents can navigate systems of access, whose schools have bandwidth, whose languages are supported by the companies building these tools. The second world would be worse than the first, because it would look like equity while maintaining inequality. Right now, in 2026, we're at a decision point. The technology exists. The evidence exists. The price point exists. What doesn't exist yet is the political will and infrastructure investment to deploy it universally. Mali is producing its first STEM textbooks in African languages, but most African countries don't have the infrastructure to distribute them, the training to teach with them, or the power to sustain the systems that maintain them. Khanmigo is available in 180 countries, but bandwidth is unreliable in many of them. Smartphones are expensive. Teachers don't have training in how to integrate AI tutoring into their classrooms. Access and infrastructure and support are solvable problems. That's actually progress, because they're not technology problems. They're policy problems. And policy can be changed. The question isn't whether AI can close the education gap. The evidence says it can. The question is whether we'll choose to deploy it in a way that actually closes the gap, or whether we'll let it become another tool that widens it. That window is open right now, not forever. Right now. If you're watching on your phone, there's a hype button right below the video. Smashing that really helps channels like ours get discovered, and we genuinely appreciate it. The Socratic method, ask, don't tell, guide, don't give, is the oldest teaching technique in Western philosophy. Socrates didn't lecture, he questioned, he drew out understanding through dialogue. For 2,000 years, that method was the gold standard of education. And for 2,000 years, it was available only to students who could afford a tutor trained in it. Now an AI can do it, at scale, in any language, at a price that approaches zero. That's not the same as a human Socratic tutor. Nothing's the same as a skilled human. But it's infinitely better than no tutor at all. And it's better than a tutor who just gives answers. The private tutor has existed for millennia. It's been rationed by wealth. For the first time in history, the technology exists to give every child on Earth a patient, multilingual, always available learning companion. One that guides instead of gives. That asks instead of answers. That meets each student exactly where they are, whether that technology reaches every child, or only the children of parents who've already navigated access, is not a technology question. It's a policy question. It's a choice. And the choices we make right now about how AI tutoring gets funded, who builds it, what languages it supports, how it's trained, whether it's designed to teach or just to perform, will determine what kind of world we build. We could build a world where the oldest inequality in education finally gets closed. Or we could build a world where it just gets more sophisticated. The technology is ready. The evidence is clear. The price is right. What happens next is up to us.
Let the future be your guide with all the knowledge deep inside.